You think you can escape me? I am here for what is owed. Pay now, or face the consequences. If you do not pay your debt, I will take everything you have until it is cleared.
There are moments when heaven seems silent, when prayers feel unanswered, when faithfulness appears to go unrewarded. Moments when those who serve God most sincerely suffer the most deeply. This is the story of a woman who stood in that silence. A woman who'd watched her husband serve God with reverence, only to bury him with tears. A woman whose obedience did not protect her from loss, but led her into a crisis so severe, it threatened to take her children. No warning, no preparation, no visible help, just debt, desperation, and a house that echoed with emptiness. But hidden within that emptiness was something small, something overlooked, something that did not look like a miracle. And yet it was, because when God chooses to move, He does not always begin with abundance. Sometimes He begins with what remains. And the question is not whether God can provide, but whether you can recognize the miracle hidden in what you still have. This is the story of the widow and the oil that would not stop. Before the oil flowed, before the miracle filled the room, there was a man, a faithful man. He was not known for wealth or influence. His name is not recorded in Scripture, but his legacy is written in one defining truth. He feared the Lord. He was among the sons of the prophets, those who walked closely with God's servants, learning, serving, observing, and dedicating their lives to the work of the Lord. He had chosen a path that was not easy. To serve God in those days meant sacrifice. It meant uncertainty. It meant walking by faith when there was no guarantee of provision. And yet, he remained faithful. Day after day, he followed, he served, he obeyed. Perhaps he stood among the company of prophets as Elisha taught. Perhaps he witnessed miracles. Water purified, provision multiplied, lives transformed. Perhaps he believed deep within his heart that the same God he served would sustain his own household. But life does not always unfold as expected. Somewhere along the journey, he died. No explanation is given. No warning is recorded. One moment he was present. The next, he was gone. And what he left behind was not security, but struggle. A wife, 2 sons, and debt. The weight of that debt did not disappear with his passing. Instead, it grew heavier, because now the responsibility rested entirely on the shoulders of a grieving widow. At first, she tried to manage. She stretched what little remained. She rationed food. She made quiet sacrifices so her sons would not feel the full impact of their loss. But grief has a way of draining strength, and debt has a way of demanding what grief cannot give. Time ran out, and then the knock came. Not gentle, not kind, but firm, final. The creditor had arrived.
The time has come. Your debt must be paid.
He did not come with sympathy. He did not come with understanding. He came with authority. Payment was due. And when she could not give it, he spoke words that cut deeper than any blade. Her sons would be taken as slaves. It was a legal right in those days, a harsh reality of a broken system. Children could be seized to settle the debts of their father. And just like that, the last pieces of her world were slipping away. Her husband was gone. And now, her sons were about to be taken. The house that once held life was now filled with dread. That night sleep did not come easily. The widow sat in silence, watching her sons as they rested, unaware of the fate approaching them. Every breath they took felt precious. Every moment felt like it might be the last before everything changed. Fear pressed in from every side. But somewhere beneath the fear, a memory stirred. A memory of the God her husband had served. A memory of the prophet he had followed. Elisha. The man through whom God had moved. The man whose life had become a testimony of divine intervention. If there was any hope left, it would be found there. And so, at first light, or perhaps before it, she made a decision. She would go to him. At that time, Elisha was not a distant figure removed from the struggles of the people. He moved among them, he taught, he corrected, he guided the sons of the prophets. He carried the mantle of Elijah, walking in the authority and calling that had been passed down to him. He had seen God move in powerful ways. Waters had been healed. Provision had come in unlikely forms. God had shown himself faithful time and time again. And on that day, another miracle was about to begin. But it would not begin with power. It would begin with a cry. The widow found him, perhaps out of breath, perhaps trembling, certainly desperate. And when she spoke, her words carried the full weight of her situation.
Your servant.
My husband is dead, and you know that your servant feared the Lord.
And the creditor is coming.
Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant feared the Lord. And the creditor is coming to take my 2 sons to be his slaves. 2 Kings 4:1. It was not just information. It was a plea rooted in truth. Her husband had been faithful. A plea rooted in urgency. Her sons were about to be taken. Elisha listened, and instead of reacting with haste, he asked a question that shifted everything.
What shall I do for you? Tell me, what do you have in your house?
It was not the question she expected, because her life was defined by what she lacked. And yet, Elisha pointed her back to what remained. Her answer revealed her perspective.
Your maidservant has nothing in the house but a jar of oil.
Nothing, except a jar, small, limited, ordinary. But heaven does not measure things the way people do. Because in the hands of God, what is small becomes significant. Elisha gave her instructions, not advice, not comfort, instructions. Go, borrow vessels from everywhere, from all your neighbors, empty vessels. Do not gather just a few. 2 Kings 4:3. It was a command that required movement. Faith was not going to be passive. She would have to step out, ask, gather, prepare, and then came the most unusual part. When you have come in, you shall shut the door behind you and your sons, then pour it into all those vessels, and set aside the full ones. 2 Kings 4:4. No explanation, no demonstration, just a directive. And in that moment, the miracle still had not happened. But faith was being tested. Would she obey? Even when it made no sense. She returned home, and she began. Door after door, she asked, "Lend me empty vessels." There must have been whispers, curiosity, confusion. But she did not stop, because desperation had turned into determination. Her sons helped her carry them, one jar at a time, until their home was filled, empty vessels everywhere, an atmosphere of expectation mixed with uncertainty. Then came the moment the door was shut. It was no longer about what others thought. It was about obedience. She took the jar of oil, and she began to pour. What happened next defied logic. The oil flowed, and it did not stop. One vessel filled, then another, then another. Each time, the same outcome: full, overflowing. Set aside, the small jar continued to pour as if it were connected to an endless source. Her sons moved quickly now, bringing vessel after vessel, their movements filled with urgency and awe. The room changed. The atmosphere shifted. What had been empty was now filled. What had been hopeless was now abundant. Until finally, there were no more vessels left. And then, the oil stopped. So the oil ceased. 2 Kings 4:6. Not because the source was empty, but because there was nothing left to receive it. She returned to Elisha, no longer broken, but amazed. And he gave her the final instruction. Go, sell the oil and pay your debt, and you and your sons live on the rest. 2 Kings 4:7. The miracle was complete. Her debt was gone. Her sons were safe, and her future was restored. This story is not just about a miracle. It is about how God works. Because the widow believed she had nothing, but God saw something, and he chose to begin there. The jar did not look like enough, but it became more than enough, and the oil only stopped when there was no more room, which means the limit was never God's power. It was capacity. So now the question turns to you. What is in your house? What have you been overlooking, dismissing, calling not enough? Because that may be the very thing God is waiting to use. And if he begins to pour, will you be ready, or will you run out of vessels before he runs out of supply? If this story stirred your heart and strengthened your faith, don't let it end here. Subscribe to Whisper of Scrolls for more powerful scripture-based stories that bring the Bible to life. There are deeper truths, hidden stories, and life-changing lessons waiting for you. Stay connected, because the next story might be the one you truly need.